Well, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out.
So in our first half hour,
Water everywhere.
We're definitely talking about Cambridge water, and we'd like to do a little bit more of that for the next half hour. And I think what we were thinking about doing here, if we can manage to do this successfully.
Some of this was done by CCTV, it looks like.
Yeah, so recently, sometime maybe recently, there was a video
May
produced,
2016.
featuring Sam Corder, who's the managing director of the Cambridge Water Department. It was actually the producers were people from CCTV, but it was done for the City View.
Rock Lewis, Sean Affel, Seth Meyer.
Right.
All CCTV. So let's go to it.
We're going to kind of go to this here, and we're going to see if we can actually get this to play correctly here.
It's this one right here,
yeah,
right?
and if you go full screen, which I think you can do.
Full screen. Yeah, right here. Yay.
Where does Cambridge's drinking water come from?
How do we know there's not lead in our water?
Is there fish swimming in our water?
How does our drinking water get to us?
So, where exactly does Cambridge's city water come from?
Yes, the water from Cambridge comes from the Hobbsbrook Reservoir. That flows via stream to the Stony Brook Reservoir. And the Stony Brook Reservoir water is conveyed to Fresh Pond via a 63-inch poured-in-place concrete conduit. So it's all an underground conduit. Then the water, we take the water out of Fresh Pond Reservoir, bring it into the treatment facility, we treat the water, we pump it up to a storage tank in Belmont, and then it's fed through pipes to everyone's homes in the city of Cambridge.
How are Cambridge's water sources protected?
Yes, that's, again, a very, very good question. We have watershed division. We do have regulatory jurisdiction to minimize encroachment onto our property. There's no swimming, there's no boating allowed in the reservoirs, and we work with all the fire departments in the watershed communities to make sure that if there is an emergency spill, because our reservoirs do go through Route 128, there's a possibility of accidents and so on. We have a lot of opportunities to either constrain, turn off, or modify how the water flows, such that if there is an area that's a problem, we can control it and repair it.
So how do you know the drinking water is clean in Cambridge?
Our water quality is very consistent and high quality. We did build this facility and put online in 2001, and it has a robust treatment systems that take out all the organics and a variety of other materials. We do add chlorine for the primary disinfection, and ozone as another primary disinfectant as well. And we do secondary disinfection with chloramines, and what that does is it allows a stable residual in the water throughout the distribution system and minimizes the reformation of any bacteria or viruses in the system. Another reason why we have high water quality is we do over 60,000 tests in the water a year. When we test for coliforms or bacteria on a weekly basis. We test daily. We test for a variety of different process controls, temperature, pH, chlorine levels, chloramine levels. We test it in the raw water before it even gets to the plant, so we understand what it's doing prior to that. We test in the treatment facility to ensure that our processes and everything is working correct, and we test at the taps in people's houses or businesses.
I'd like to inquire how much fluoride there is in the Cambridge water.
We do add a fluoride to the water. That's a standard from the CDC, and they just reduce that. And so we do always test to make sure that we're at the correct levels, and it's 0.7 parts per million, right? Well, fluoride is to prevent teeth decay. Apparently, and in the past, that can be a serious issue which can cause actually death via infections in your mouth.
It seems like the water can be clean and treated, and then it gets delivered to our house via the pipes. Does that play into the water quality?
Again, obviously, when the water leaves the plant, and then in between here and it gets to a home or a property, the water quality could possibly change slightly. There are 190 miles of pipe in the city of Cambridge, and there's obviously water services, and there's all the plumbing in everyone's house. So the typical thing we say is if you're looking at water and you're not comfortable with the way it looks, you certainly shouldn't drink it. I'm pretty sure it's safe, but again, the safest thing to do is always, if you have any doubt, don't drink the water and give us a call, and we will come and respond.
How can we be sure there's no lead in our drinking water?
Yes, well, the raw water or the incoming water really typically has zero lead in it, and where lead actually can be picked up is most likely in plumbing fixtures in a house. A lot of the sources is, your kitchen fixture, for example, made of brass. In the old days, they allowed up to 8% lead in that brass material, and I believe the state is in 2014, January 2014, I think it has to be, all the plumbing fixtures made in the state or distributed or sold in the state have to be less than 0.25% weight by lead, but that was January of 2014. We started doing this probably almost 20 years ago.
What can the city of Cambridge do to make my water bill less expensive?
The water department is always working to improve our process, to reduce costs. We've recently put solar panels on the roof to reduce our electrical power consumption. We're putting variable frequency drives on our raw water pumps, which again should significantly reduce power consumption again. We are always looking at the process to see if we can do it for less money, use less chemicals, and do it for less cost. One of the fruits I think of that has been I think this year is the 6th running year that the water rate has not increased. It's been a steady water rate for 6 years, which again, I think is showing that we've really done a pretty good job of trying to control and understand the costs and at least minimize them.
If I'm concerned about tap water, what should I do?
They should call the water department. The number is 617-349-4770. Again, we do take every single call extremely seriously, and it's very, very important that we do because, again, people's health are at jeopardy.
Very nice.
All right.
I like the way you just went right to us.
So anyway, that was something. Actually, I saw it on the Water City's Facebook page. They had it linked there. I thought it was a pretty nice.
I bet they did that because this is after the whole Flint thing.
Right, actually,
It has to have been a reaction to
last
that.
night I
Yeah.
was actually up doing the tour of the water filtration.
How often do they do
plant.
the tour?
I think it's more or less every month, at least during this time of year. I don't know if it's
Find out by
year-round.
going to their site.
Yeah, it's something people should do. It's incredibly interesting. You get a tour, you get to sort of see how the plant operates.
I did it once, yeah.
You get the tour into the lab. You can see what the old pipes looked like. They actually have some samples of what was in there. And on the lead issue, I have to say, when I was in there, you could see they had like water samples from every single school building in Cambridge.
Oh, that's been such a big thing since
and multiple
Boston.
days. And the reason they were doing it is that they wanted to say, that since there was an issue in Boston, there's also an issue in the city of Newton. And I think Cambridge is now being very proactive, and I'm sure they'll actually come up with a really, really positive report.
I was impressed that he said that Cambridge did something about something 20 years ago versus by some directive from the government.
Yeah, I mean, we've been way ahead of the game. In fact, in some respects, the state's actually been taking our lead in some matters.
Yeah.
Right. So we're just seeing some images there actually from the water treatment plant. So let me just sort of rattle off a few other things, since we did mention that the old water treatment facility had been built in 1923 and was state-of-the-art at the time. Actually, in 1931 was when the municipal golf course was crafted over on the western edge of the Fresh Pond, which I don't think that would have been allowed today, because that's right on a watershed. They expanded the treatment facility in 1932 from 10 to 16 filter beds, because you have to filter the water. So I gave it a lot more capacity. Remember, Cambridge was also a much more industrial city, and there were a lot more industrial needs for water.
Yes.
So they had 20 some odd million gallon a day capacity. Our usage today averages about 12 million gallons per day total for the city. It used to be higher, but there was conservation, leak detection, a lot of other reasons why it's actually brought down.
I noticed in your figures, in your story thing there, it said that the population was 87,000 and 18 something, and I was thinking, wow, that's a lot of people. We haven't gained that much. So it could be partly because you said there was a lot of working people.
It was a lot more industrial use in water, and also people just were not as conscious about the conservation for some of those years. just out of concern for water quality or potential shortfalls in water, so we didn't just run out. There was a recommendation to make these interconnections with the MDC, Metropolitan District Commission, which is now, their assets are now part of the MWRA. So that was a recommendation from 1942. It was realized in 1950. So we've had the capacity to just put on MWRA water ever since then. Yeah, we did it actually when we have to do major upgrades, like when they rebuilt the plant.
Oh, right, sure.
We were on
I remember that. It was quite a
MWRA water for
while.
like
Yeah.
2.25 years,
That's
I think
right.
it was.
Yeah.
Now, just sort of an odd little historical fact here. It was in 1959 that Cambridge began fluoridation of the water.
Oh, not till 1959.
Yeah, I don't think there were that many places prior to
Anyway,
that.
okay.
All right, and,
Yeah.
and let's be clear, fluoridation is really just changing the fluoride levels.
Wasn't it a political thing, though, for some
It
people?
was, yeah. There is naturally occurring fluoride in water anyway, and
Yeah.
it was just really because it was found in places that had higher fluoride levels, people had better teeth. So they said, well, let's adjust it to their levels. So that's all they ever really do. But a little over 4 years later, in 1964, they then stopped fluoridation. And if you think about it, it's like Dr. Strangelove makes reference to fluoridation, Mandrake, right?
It was the Cold
That was
War.
early 60s.
Yeah.
So this was right at the time when there was all these...
Yeah, just could, they're going to put something in our water and
the John Birch Society was actually one of the mainstays of the anti-fluoridation movement, and they were based in Belmont, Massachusetts.
Oh, that's interesting. You're right.
Right where our water tank is. So
That's funny.
it is kind of an interesting curiosity there.
Yeah.
So anyway, there were other changes, but we basically were steady state for a while until about 1991. Is where the Payson Park Reservoir was reconstructed. I will actually show you some pictures of those in a second. Actually, let's sort of...
Which one is that?
We just can punch through these to actually get, more or less to where we were. And so we'll show you some pictures of that. And then by 1998 to 2001, they were completely rebuilding the water treatment facility to the building that's there today.
Is this where I want to be?
Yeah, so I want to just sort of show a little pictures here, since I have to say, I was actually appointed by Al Vellucci to be on a water sewer advisory committee back in 1988.
Gosh. Wow.
And served on that for a couple of years, and honestly, we didn't really accomplish a hell of a lot, but I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I've been a water junkie ever since.
Yeah.
I like to call myself an aqua evangelist, sort of, preaching the word. But back in 1991, and again, there wasn't always a lot of political will to actually invest the money to do some of these things at the time. And the city's finances were not nearly in as great a shape as they are today.
Yeah.
So these were big decisions that had to be made. But here's an image here of the Payson Park Reservoir when it was under reconstruction, around that period of time. So this would have been around 1991 or thereabouts. Basically, it used to be just side-by-side open basins. So the water would be sent up there, and it would just be an open body of water with those sort of tilted, slanted sides. So what they did is they built essentially these upright vertical tanks within the basin of the old reservoir up there. So we actually got a little more height out of it as a result, and it was because of federal laws, federal regulations, they had to be covered facilities. The nice thing about it is as soon as it became a covered facility, you no longer had to put nearly as much chlorine in because it didn't exit the water. So there were some improvements in water quality that happened even right then. Would you click on it one more time? It's just another shot of the construction of the Payson Park Reservoir here. Just filling with sand and whatnot.
This is 91?
This is 1991, yeah. Now,
wow,
later on, we did mention about the reconstruction of the water treatment facility. I don't have here an image of the old facility when it was fully in operation. This is basically when it was being demolished.
Yeah.
So this is...
was it completely taken down?
Yeah.
They didn't use any of it?
Right, completely replaced, knocked down and replaced by a lot of different changes in the system as well.
Yeah.
Basically, the old plant had grown from its original core with various treatment options being added. So I think that was, you're looking in there what the old clear well was underneath that structure. It was actually kind of dangerous in ways because for the chlorine, you actually had to truck the chlorine in via railroad car. And quite honestly, there were more than a few ways in which a real catastrophic event could have happened back then. So there were some really good reasons for changing this facility out.
Is there another photo here?
Let's just go to click on through here. So again, this is just another shot looking over there at the old treatment plant as it was being torn down. Let's pop it. There's another view from another side. I think I have a total of maybe 4 of these. So looking at the tower that used to be prominent there, looking at that. So that was the old facility on its way out. And I think the next shot actually shows the new facility.
Which they tried to keep in the spirit of the old one.
Yeah, I think, that's
yeah.
one of the things that's really great about the city of Cambridge is amongst many things, they really do try and retain historical memories. So you'll see little elements from the old facility will be kind of
But that wasn't illegal, they didn't have to do that? I would think it was,
no.
It wasn't a historical.
And another thing too is water treatment facilities or any kind of reservoir facilities are really meant to be keepers. These tend to be like meant to last a century type of thing. So it's, you don't sort of slap it together, based on the latest architectural trend. You make it great.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. So this is now, everybody who goes up around Fresh Pond sees this today. It's got a lot of landscaping around it, but this is when it was first opened. Yeah.
That's inside.
Now, that facility was actually, it was being reconstructed from about 1998 to 2001. It actually went online in March of 2001. And I will tell you, this is actual truth. I was taking a shower and I said, wait a minute, something's different.
Oh, come on.
This is good. This is absolutely true.
Oh,
I filled the bathroom sink with water and said, this is sparkly, this is beautiful.
Wow.
And I got on the phone and I called the water department, talked to Tim McDonald, who's the operations manager, and I said, did you guys put on the plant? He goes, 6 o'clock yesterday.
Oh, that is, and then you noticed it.
And I noticed it because when I was taking a shower.
Probably the only
so
person.
Great. No, I'm very sensitive about this.
That's really
So anyway,
nice.
so I got my own private tour inside in the area that you no longer can go in for tours, by the way, because there's some sensitive things in there.
Sure.
So let's just click through a few more here. So this again, just sort of, it looks a little bit like, Candyland Factory in there with all these wonderful pipes here, but it's a much more easy to understand, even in its complexity. Everything is laid bare. It's really, really very clear. Tremendous integration of function and art in the facility.
Yeah.
All right, let's click ahead. And this is just looking down at all the pumps. Now, some of these pumps are to draw water from the pond into the plant. Some of it is to backwash the filter beds. And then the big ones, I think the 4 big ones on the right are the ones that are used to pump the water up to Payson Park Reservoir. So those are the high lift pumps.
Yeah.
Right? So the facility opened in, you get a kick out of this one. The facility opened in March of 2001, but in October of 2001, there was an electrical hiccup in Chelsea or somewhere that caused a catastrophic failure of a pipe, flooded out the entire lower level. So it was actually out until February of 2004, February of 2002.
You're kidding.
So it was out for about
5 months?
4.5 months
Wow.
as a result. And only recently did the city finally settle in terms of who bore financial responsibility for that. This is just here read for sort of a little bit of fun.
So what did you do here?
I've been such a water junkie. I was one day, I was sawing down around Fresh Pond, I happened to notice some water in a place. I said, there shouldn't be water in this place here. In this
When was this?
It's a place where there used to be a place called Fountain Terrace. And I went in there and I actually explored around and I saw like the ground sort of bubbling up, and I said, oh, it's a leak. So just to have a little fun with my friends at the water department, I made a little sign, stuck it at the leak, and then brought another copy, went over to the water department and told them, you'll find my sign over here, and that's where the leak is.
And there actually was a leak?
Click it one more time. It's just a little bit of a close-up of that. So Mike Nicolore used to be the managing director. He's no longer.
Was this a few years ago?
Yeah, Chip Norton was the watershed manager. He passed away tragically just a couple of years ago. He was a really, really great guy. Tim McDonald was then and still is the operations manager. Sam Corda used to work in the department, went away, and now he is the managing director. Gene Rogers is the ranger, who a lot of people know Gene.
Yes.
And I said, and all my other friends at the Cambridge Water Department. So you can say, you can take her from here. Right.
That's funny.
So click on a little bit more here. Now, last night, because I was thinking about
This
doing
is just from
show,
last night?
Yeah, I went up on one of the treatment
Oh.
facilities. So there's Tim McDonald, who I have now, we were talking about. I've known him since 1988 now, like almost 30 years. It's one of the most wonderful people working for the city of Cambridge. Let's see if we click another one in here. And these are just a few closing shots of really what a lot of people, they don't even think about the infrastructure aspect of the Cambridge water. They just go, oh boy, fresh pond.
Right.
And Fresh Pond is beautiful, and it is the final reservoir before treatment for the city of Cambridge. So it's just a nice shot sort of looking through here. I think I have two more. So let's see. This is another one here. As the sun was going down over
Still
Fresh
there.
Pond.
There you go.
And I think you just can't lose when you go around Fresh Pond around dusk.
And the next one, I think,
it's
is
just
really
one
nice.
last shot here.
I love this one. Where is this gate? It's like a gate. I've
This
seen
is
that.
actually a piece of artwork that was
that's right.
crafted by Mags Harries.
Oh, man, of course.
And she put this here. It's
Yeah.
actually right across from where when you go from the treatment plant
That's
straight
right.
over
Right.
to the pond. It's actually a little section carved from a pipe. It's sort of raised there and sort of looking out over the pond. And I just thought it was kind of a nice shot.
She's a Cambridge resident, too.
Yes, absolutely. Lives up around
Somewhere
near
around
Porter
Cambridge.
Square,
Yeah.
actually. And I've been to their studio numerous
Yeah.
times. So anyway,
Wonderful.
if we get
Very
one more time,
nice.
we'll go right back to the old map in here, and you can sort of go from there. So anyway, so
Very
those are
nice.
just a little bit of sampler.
Yeah.
And I actually have to say I was having a lot of fun last night just going through some of my old photo
Yeah.
collections, just finding some of these things in here.
Nice.
So anyway, as we mentioned, the treatment plant went out after its little failure went off, was put back online in February of 2002, and it's been down a few times, but not because of any catastrophic failure, but because of routine things. So if you have to, change out a section of pipe that requires closing down the system, then you basically go on MWRA water for hopefully not too long a period of time. And then you go back on Cambridge water. And Cambridge water consistently comes out as meeting or beating any water quality standards.
Right.
And for those who've lived around Cambridge for a long time, maybe some of you lifers out there, you may remember Cambridge water actually had a bit of a chlorine taste that was noticeable back in the old days. There are some people who actually will drink bottled water today because they think, that
it's
Cambridge
bad.
water,
Yeah.
it's like, you haven't tried Cambridge water in a long time if you think that's true.
I think all the municipal buildings now have Cambridge water, right?
And they really try to
don't bring
touting
in,
it. And it really should be. I mean, honestly, Cambridge could bottle its water and sell it, and it would be that good.
I think Henrietta Davis, I think, promoted that a lot. I think,
Yeah. No, I think it's absolutely some of the best stuff of all, right? Well, we've got about 5 minutes here. I'll just mention a few other things here, other than the fact that we just love our Cambridge water. Once again,
Yes.
Cambridge water.
Cambridge water.
Right? But here's some things. One thing that a lot of people don't understand, I didn't know this until I was sat on that Water and Sewer Advisory Committee way back then, was that the expansion of the water system was not entirely done to get more water or better drinking water. A huge factor, an incredibly important factor in developing the system was fire protection. If you don't have a reservoir with like a full day's service of water up in a reservoir, and if there's a major fire, you're screwed, basically.
Yeah.
So having those reservoirs, originally the reservoir, street reservoir, but then eventually the Payson Park Reservoir, basically gives the city of Cambridge the capacity to fight a fire. As everybody I'm sure can understand, if there's a serious fire, a lot of water gets used in a very short period of time.
Back then, a lot of things were made out of wood. They didn't have as much. Brick
That's
and
right.
everything.
That's right. So, so that was a real concern. Actually, it was the biggest concern when Boston grew its water supply, went out to Lake Cochituate, eventually Lake Wachusett, and out to the Quabbin Reservoir eventually.
Flooded a few times.
Yeah, there was really this golden years of watershed consciousness in the late
Did they go along
1800s.
with like street development and everything else, or was it?
Yeah, honestly,
they came first?
well, I think arguably the development of the Cochituate Aqueduct in Boston to give them an external water supply
Yeah.
is what really allowed the Irish migration to the city of Boston. There was no way they would have ever been able to meet the needs of a growing city. It was growing as fast as it was in the mid-1800s without that external water supply. So, there's a lot of history associated with some of these
Yeah.
the water infrastructure, without a doubt. So here's another sort of curiosity. This is something I've actually had up on my website for ages. Not all, but many fire hydrants actually have colors on the caps. There are blue caps, there are green caps, orange caps, red caps, and I think there are some that are other. I'm not saying this is universal,
Okay.
but the color coding on a fire hydrant is done so that without having to look it up on a map. In the case of a fire, firefighters can immediately detect which fire hydrants are capable of giving you a
The
lot of
most
flow.
water. Okay.
So if you happen to live near a blue-capped fire hydrant,
You get a
you're
lot of
lucky.
flow.
You're lucky. You could probably get a break on your insurance rates because those ones are going to get 1,500
Interesting.
plus gallons per minute of flow capacity.
Now, is that a political siting at all? I mean,
I don't think so.
You do it more by volume of
I think
people,
if
or
the city would love to have all of the fire hydrants
blue,
equally
yeah.
be capable, but there's just so much you can do, and honestly, so much you need more in some places. By the way, if you're near major, higher buildings, they have tanks
They have
are built internally in their own internal pumping station. But
That makes
green is a
sense.
bit less. That's in the 1,000 to 1,500 gallon per minute range. Orange is next, 500 to 999 gallons per minute. And then red is anything that's less than 500 gallons per minute. Now, I don't know that this is consistently maintained so much anymore, but these are sort of little facts about the system in around here. So anyway, so you might want to sort of go around like a scavenger hunt and just sort
What's
of.
on my street?
Right, exactly. So
we've got less than a minute left.
Just less than a minute here. So I think it's probably worth mentioning something not having to do with Cambridge Water.
Bernie endorsed Hillary
Today was the big day of the endorsement of Sanders of Hillary Clinton, which I guess is a really good thing. But I have to say, I was watching the staunch Sanders supporters expressions of outrage.
Was this in Portsmouth, or just in
there
general?
were people there, but I think certainly online it was people were just losing their minds.
Well, that's
so this all sorted itself out. But anyway, it was an interesting day politically at the national level. So.
All right.
Anyway, so we talked a little bit about water today. Maybe we'll talk more infrastructure another day. So anyway, drink up and enjoy your Cambridge water. It's really some of the best you'll ever find.
Well, there'll
See
be
you in a couple
something next
weeks.
week, but a couple weeks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.